Hi guys, welcome back. In the last session, we completed our discussion related to how to Dockerize Java applications. In the Java, we can see two types of applications, guys. One is normal Java application without using Spring Boot. Second one is Java application with Spring Boot. So Spring Boot is ready-made framework to develop Java applications. It will provide the server to run the application. That is called embedded server. So when you are writing Java, whenever you are working on the Java application, normal Java web applications will be deployed into Tomcat server as a WAR file. So we need to specify the base image as a Tomcat by using from keyword. When we specify the base image as a Tomcat, it will take care of Tomcat plus Java to run our application. So in my system, the project will be packaged. It will generate a WAR file in the target folder. We need to copy that WAR file from the target folder to Tomcat web apps folder. So this path, whatever I am giving, this is default path in the Docker container, right? Now expose, I'm telling that my Docker container will run on the port number 8080. So like this here, I have given the working procedure for that process. And whenever we run this application as a Docker container, we need to do the port mapping. So container will be using the port 8080. On the host machine, I'm mapping that to the 8080. So once the port mapping is completed, we need to enable that port in the security groups of EC2. Then only we can access that application in our browser. Then when we go for Spring Boot application will be packaged as a jar file. For the Spring Boot application, we no need to set up the server. Server will be taken care by Spring Boot. So for that, we are giving the base images from OpenJDK 11. That means we are telling for this Spring Boot application, we need Java. Spring Boot application will be packaged as a jar. We will copy the jar file from the target folder to user app directory in the container. Once we copied the jar to this location, we will change our working directory. We will go to this path and we will execute that jar by using entry point. So here also, Spring Boot application will use a Tomcat, right? The Tomcat will run on the port number 8080. So expose 8080. So I have given working procedure for that Spring Boot application also. Next one, how to Dockerize Python application, guys. So we have seen the Java application. Similarly, how we can Dockerize our Python based application. How can we Dockerize our Python based applications? Good. First of all, what is Python application? What is Python? Python app with Docker. Python application with Docker. So Java is a programming language that is used to develop the applications, right? Similarly, Python is available. What is this Python? Python is a general purpose language. Python is a general purpose scripting language. General purpose scripting language. Now, here Java programs will have .java as extension. Python programs will have .py extension. For the Python programs, compilation is not required because Python is a scripting language. Directly we can execute. Compilation is not required for Python programs. Python programs, compilation not required for Python programs. For Java, compilation is required. That's why we are using Maven as a build tool. We are compiling the project and we are packaging the project by using Maven. Compilation is not required for Python programs. Compilation is not required for Python programs. Why? Because Python is a scripting language. They will have .py as extension. Directly we can run our Python programs. Okay, guys. Now, how to write the Docker file? Python app Docker file. Python application Docker file. So if I want to Dockerize one Python application, how can we write the Docker file? So Python application source code will be available. Now, to run that Python application, we need Python software. Okay, guys, here I'm going to specify from Python 3.6. which version of the Python you want to run this Python based application, we need to specify that as a base image. So base image earlier for normal Java web application, I specified base image as Tomcat. For Spring Boot application, I specified base image as Java. For Python application, I'm specifying base image as Python from Python 3.6. I want Python 3.6 version. Okay, now I can specify who is maintainer of this file. Okay, guys, I can specify my name as a maintainer, something like this. Okay, fine. So once we specify the maintainer, I want to copy the Python code from our system to the container location. To copy the code from our system to the container, I will take a copy dot. Dot means current working directory. I want to copy everything from the current working directory to /user/app. So this is copy source path and a destination path. So in my project, whatever the files are available, Python programs are available, I want to copy all the Python programs from my project directory to user app directory. User app directory is a container directory. User app directory is a container directory. So like this, we can do that. So once we have done this, now you can go for work dir. So work dir /user/app. So you don't need to give user app. You can directly give just app also. So whatever the code is available in my project, whatever the Python programs available in my project, I want to copy to app directory. The app directory will be available in the container. So once the code is copied to app directory, I will go to work dir and I will go to that app directory. I will go to that app directory. Now I want to run my Python application. So Python application will run by default on the port number 5000. Expose 5000 will be available. Now here, once it is available, then we need to go for entry point. I want to run the Python application. So to run the Python application, I will go for Python, app.py. App.py is my Python program. I want to execute the Python program. Earlier we executed Java program, right? So here to execute the Java program, we used Java space -jar space Java program file name, jar file name. Here to execute the Python programs, we will go for entry point and we will use Python and app.py. App.py is my Python program. So it is a scripting language. We no need to do the compilation. Directly we can execute the Python programs. So from Python 3.6, maintainer Ashok, copy dot/app. So the project content I want to copy from source location to destination. Once it is copied to the destination location, I need to change the work directory to this app directory. From there, I am going to execute my Python program by using entry point, expose 5000. Now guys, in the Python is scripting language, normal console-based applications we are going to develop. For example, I want to develop a web application by using Python. To develop a web application by using Python, we are going to use Python Flask. There will be a software called Python Flask software will be available. Python Flask, that is one framework in the Python, which is used to execute the web application by using Python, the REST API by using Python. So we need to install that Flask also. To install that Flask application, I will write one text file and I am going to specify run pip install -r requirements.txt. So what are the softwares that are required to execute our Python application? Those softwares we are going to keep in the requirements.txt and we will use, already we installed Python. In the Python, pip will be available as a package manager. Run pip install -r requirements.txt. So whatever the softwares that I mentioned in the requirements.txt file, we need to install. For that, we are using pip. This command should be executed while creating the container. That's why I'm using run instruction. When the run instruction will execute, run instruction will be executed when the Docker image is creating. When the Docker image is creating, that run instruction will execute. By using run instruction, I'm telling to install the softwares which are available in the requirements.txt file. The softwares will be executed by using requirements.txt file. Are you guys able to understand what I am writing here? Are you guys able to understand what I have done here? Python application Docker file. Please read this Docker file. Come on, guys. Are you able to understand the content of the Docker file? Python application Docker file. From keyword, I'm specifying base image as Python. Maintainer, who is author of this Docker file. Copy is used to copy the files from one path to another path. Dot represents everything which is available in the project. I want to copy to app directory. Then work dir, change the working directory. Then install the required softwares. Then execute the Python app.py, expose 5000. Expose 5000. Good. Now, let's go for Python application, guys. In my GitHub account, I'm having Python Flask application. So let's go for the repositories. Python Flask Docker application. Python Flask Docker application. So this is our project. This is our Docker project, which is using Python Flask. Okay. Now, if you see here, I have given one program called app.py. This is our Python program, which is developed by using Flask framework. Right. Now, in order to execute this program, we need the Flask. So that's why I specified the Flask here. Requirements.txt by using Flask. So why we are specifying this Flask in the requirement.txt? This Flask is a Python based. So in order to install this Flask, we need Python. So that's why Python we are installing by using Docker. Once the Python is installed, then by using Python pip, we are installing the Flask software. Then go to Docker file. So same thing will be available in the Docker file. So here I'm specifying base image by using from maintainer, copy from current folder to from current directory to app directory, then change our work dir, then go for expose, then run the requirements.txt file by using pip software, then execute this entry point. So same thing I have given as Python application Docker file. Now here I'm going to give working procedure. So what are the steps that we need to follow in order to Dockerize our Python based application? In order to Dockerize our Python based application, what is the working procedure? Now let me give this repository, Git repository for this Python Flask Docker application. Copy this Git repository. This is git clone. Okay. Git clone this repository URL I'm giving. So once we got this application, do I need to do any build for the Python? For the Java, we need the build. But for the Python, do we need the build or we don't need the build for the Java? For the Python, for Java, we need the build. For Python, do we need the build process or we don't need the build process for the Python? We don't need that because Python is a general purpose scripting language. Python programs will have .py extension. Compilation is not required for the Python programs. Compilation is not required for the Python programs. And this is Python application Docker file. Are you clear with my point? Now, what is the working procedure that we need to follow? Git clone, the repository URL is available. So once, let me do that. Now here, ls-l, I connected to my machine. Let me start the Docker, sudo service docker start. Sudo service docker start. So I'm able to start my Docker. Now ls-l, currently there are two projects available, guys. One is Maven web application. Another one is Spring Boot Docker application. Now I want to clone the Python project. Git clone the repository URL. The Python Flask application is available in my GitHub. Let me take this URL and let me clone it. Git clone this URL. Yep, we have cloned that Python project into our machine. Now ls-l, I got Python Flask Docker application, cd space Python Flask Docker app. So I'm able to get into the project. Now ls-l, can you see app.py, Docker file is available, requirements.txt is available. Okay, guys. Now Docker file contains the data. You can see that by using vi Docker file. So what is there? From base image, maintainer, copy, workdir, expose. Expose is used to specify on which port number our container will run. We are using Python Flask that will run our application on the port number 5000. Run pip install -r requirements.txt. -r represents recursive insertion. So in this file, we can specify multiple softwares. All the softwares will be installed one by one. For that, I am using -r. Currently, I have only one, that is Flask. Once all the things are completed, I want to execute my Python program, which is app.py using Python command. So this entry point will execute when the container is creating. Run will execute when the image is creating. Right. Let me save this file and close it. So with this, we are having our Docker file also. Let me delete Docker system prune -a. I have deleted everything, deleting the containers and deleted the images. See, almost 1.1 GB of space is clear because yesterday we created several images and we have created the containers also. Now I have deleted everything. Which command I use to delete everything? Docker system prune -a. Good. Now let us go for Docker images. Sorry. Let us go for Docker images. So do I have any image now? No. Currently image is not available. I want to build the Docker image for my Python application. You can check my present working directory. Already I'm in the Python Flask Docker application. I want to Dockerize this application. So build a Docker image. So to build a Docker image, Docker build -t image name. So I can give Python Flask app space dot. So with this, the Docker image will be created for Python application. Enter. Now you see image is creating. It is pulling Python from the Docker hub, pulling from Docker library. Once the Docker image is pulled, then our image will be created. It will pull the Python image from the Docker library. Using that Python image, it will build the Docker image for our Python application. Okay. Yes, fine. So with this, we are able to create the Docker image. Let us see Docker images. So here Python image it pulled, then by using that it created our image. Once our image is created, now we can run our Docker image. So whenever we are running the Docker image, we need to specify that detached mode and we need to specify port mapping. How to specify detached mode and port mapping? Let us see here. Docker run -d -p 5000:5000. So as Python Flask application will run on the port number 5000, I should map that to the other host port number. So here this 5000 is the container port number. This 5000 left side port number is our host port number. Right side port number is our container port number. -d means it will run in the detached mode. -p is used for port mapping. Then take the Docker image, give the Docker image, run this. So with this, my Python Flask application is running. So let us go for Docker ps. Now you can see the application is running. So here, this is the container. We can see the running containers by using docker ps command. Python Flask application is running in the container. So this is the command we used in the entry point. It created 8 seconds ago. Ports mapped. So this 5000 is the host port, and this is the container port. It is mapped to host port. So here, application running on the 5000, it is mapped to 5000 on the host machine. Now here, we cannot access that application directly because we need to enable the port number. We need to enable the port number. So see here, how to enable that port number. Go to our machine, Docker machine. Here by default, EC2 instance will not allow the traffic. Select that machine, go to the security group, So here for this machine, we have attached one security group. Now, so when you select this machine, you will get the security tab. Go to the security tab and click on the security group. Earlier, for Java applications, we enabled 8080 port number and 9090 port number. Today, Python container is also mapped to one port number in the same machine, that is 5000. Add the rule custom TCP enable 5000. Okay, any request which is coming to 5000 port, this security group should allow that request. So I'm configuring that as an inbound rule. Inbound rule means it is used to allow the incoming request to our machine. Save the rule. Now fine, we are able to enable 5000 port number in the security group of our machine. Now let us try to access that Python application. This is the public IP of that machine. Go to the browser, give the public IP :5000. Now, welcome to Python Flask application Ashok IT. So this is the URL of our Python application. Are you guys able to access the Python application now? I gave the URL in the chat box. Are you guys able to access that? Are you guys able to access that? Are you guys able to access that? Working or not? Yes, working. So now, only that when we are working on the multiple technologies, the only difference that we can see is the Docker file. The remaining process is same. So what is the working procedure that I have done? I have cloned that Git repository. Then I use it to change the directory. I will go inside this directory, cd space directory. Once we go to that project directory, we can see what are the things are available, ls-l, what are the files are available. You can print the content of that also. You can just do the cat of that Docker file. Here, I'm cloning that repository. This repository contains the Python Flask application. Developers will create the project. Developers will keep the project code into the Git repository. So now we need to clone that Git repository. Guys, before going to do this, what I am doing is I'm doing docker system prune-a. So what will happen? It will delete everything which is available in our machine related to Docker. All the Docker containers, all the stopped containers, unused images, everything will be deleted when you go for docker system prune-a. Now git clone. So I'm cloning the Git repository. Then I change the directory. I'm entering into that project directory. I'm checking what are the files available in that. I'm checking the content of the Docker file. Once it is done, then I will build the Docker image. To build the Docker image, I will go for docker build -t image name. Okay, I'm giving the image name as Python Flask app space dot. Right, build -t image name and a dot. That means it will take the current directory and it will find the Docker file and it will build the Docker image for that. Once the Docker image is created, I need to run the Docker image. So how to run? Docker run -d -p port mapping. So I want to map it to 5000 :5000. What is the image name? Here we have created the image. Take the image and give the image name. So with this, Docker image will be executed. When the image is executed, container will be created. After building the image, you can verify the image which you have created by using Docker images command. Now, once you created the container, then you can go for Docker PS command. You can go for a Docker PS command. Here we are building the image and we are verifying the image is created or not by using Docker images command. Here we are running the image, then Docker container will be created. Whether container is created or not, we are verifying by using Docker PS command. So once we have done all this process, then what we need to do? So as we have mapped container port 5000 to host port 5000, we need to enable 5000 port in security group. Already you enabled 80809090 for yesterday applications. Similarly, today you need to enable that 5000 port number for the Python application. Once that is done, access Python application in the browser. Access Python application in browser. Okay, guys. So how to access that? What is the URL? http://ec2 public IP :5000. That's it. So when I access that URL, now I am able to see Python Flask application output. Welcome to Python Flask application. I'm getting the Flask application output. Are you clear with this working procedure? I'm deleting everything which is available in my machine. Docker system prune. I'm cloning the repository. I'm going inside the project directory. Then I'm checking what are the files available in the directory. Docker file will be available. So once the Docker file is available, by using cat command, we can see the content of the Docker file. By using that Docker file, I want to build a Docker image. For that, I'm using Docker build command. Then I want to see whether my Docker image is created or not. I'm using Docker images command. Once the Docker image is created, I want to run the image. Whenever you run the image, then you need to map the port to access your application. So Python Flask application is using 5000 as a port number. That 5000 I want to map to host port, right? So once you execute this run command, container will be created. To check whether container is created or not, we can go for Docker PS command. So Docker PS command will display all the containers which are running. Now, fine, we are able to see the container. Once we are able to see the container, as we discussed, whenever we run our Docker application, whenever we run our application on the Docker, one container will be created in the host machine. So we need to establish the mapping between the container and our host machine. That's where we are doing the port mapping. End user will send the request to the host machine to access our application. Inside that application, container is running. So host port should be mapped to container port. Then our application will be accessible outside. So we are doing that mapping by using -p. Then whatever the host port we have used here, that port we are enabling in the security group. Then we are able to access the application by using this URL. Are you clear? We have done normal Java web application Dockerization, Spring Boot application Dockerization, Python application Dockerization. Come on, guys. Yeah, perfect. So with this, we understood how to Dockerize Java application, how to Dockerize Spring Boot application, and how to Dockerize Python application. Guys, here, once we have done the Dockerization, sometimes we may get the issue. Our application may not execute as expected. So how to troubleshoot the Docker containers? So in the interview, they will ask the question, you are able to build the Docker image. You created a container. How to check the logs of the container? How to check the logs of the container? Whether application is executing as expected or not? Are there any problems in the application execution? How do you verify that? So for that, we need to execute some commands, right? So here, Docker containers troubleshooting. Okay, here we will execute a command called Docker logs command with a container ID. Docker logs command with the container ID. It is used to check the logs of the Docker container. So what is the meaning of the logs? Logs will print how the application is executing. If any problem occurred in the application, it can print that information by using this logs command. So here our Docker container is executing. Let us go for Docker PS. So when I execute Docker PS, you can see the container is created. Now I want to see logs of this container. How to check the logs of the container? Take that container ID. Let us go for Docker logs container ID. Now you see these many requests are coming to my application. These many requests are coming to my application. You can see the date and time. How many requests are coming to my application? So my server is started. My server is started when I execute Docker logs. So we are running that application on the development server. Application is running on this 172.17.0.2.5000. Now restarting with the start, debugger is active, debugger pin. So we got the HTTP request to our application. So HTTP requests are coming to our application. It is able to process the request and sending the response for them. So like this, you can check the logs of the container. So which command I am using to check the logs of the container? Docker logs container ID. Docker logs container ID. Now here guys, in the interview, they will ask this question. How to check the logs of the Docker container? To check print container logs. Print container logs. So that means how the application is executing in the server, the logs will be printed by using this command. For example, if you see in our previous applications, whether it is a Java application or Spring Boot application, we are copying the files from host machine to container, right? So copy the war file from our project target directory to the Tomcat. Where is this Tomcat? Tomcat will be available inside the container. And I'm copying my project jar file to the container. So copy the jar file to user app directory. Where is this user app directory? Inside the container. Similarly, when it comes to the Python application also, we are copying our project files from complete project files to app directory. Where is this app directory? That is a Docker container. So whenever we execute a Docker container, one virtual machine will be created. In that machine, that is a Linux machine only. In that machine, our Docker container is executing. Container is nothing but a box. Now here, through this mobile extram, I connected to my machine, the Linux machine. In this Linux machine, I'm running Docker container. Now container ID is available, and inside the container, my application is running. How to get into the container? Already I am in one machine. From this machine, I want to get into the container machine, and I want to see really my project code is copied to the container machine or not. Right, that is one level of troubleshooting. So we are able to see the logs of the Docker container. To check the logs of the Docker container, we will go for Docker logs command. Not only checking the logs, I want to get into the container machine. So here we can get into the container machine also by using one command. Okay, so get into Docker container machine. Get into Docker container. So for that, we will use a command called Docker exec-it, and we are going to specify container ID, and we will specify /bin/bash. So this command is very important, guys. This command is used to get into the Docker container and see how our project is copied into the Docker container. So we are getting into the Docker container machine. So we are working on the host machine. in the host machine, we installed the Docker. Using this Docker, we created a Docker image. Using the Docker image, we created a Docker container. So the container is nothing but one machine, right? So I want to get into this container. Like this, I want to get into the container. From the host machine, I want to get into the container. From the host machine to get into the container, we will use a command docker exec-it container id bin bash. So several times we want to see what happened in the container to understand the problem. For that, logs command we are going to use, and docker exec command also we are going to use. Now let me execute that command. Now currently, observe guys, I'm in the project directory. What is my PWD? I am in the home directory, EC2 user directory, Python Flask Docker app directory. This is my present working directory. PWD command will give you present working directory. In my system, one Docker container is running that is used by Python application. Right. This is the container ID. So if I want to check the logs of that, then simply I can go for Docker logs container ID. Just I want to see server logs. So how application is executing. I'm able to see the logs of the server. Now, not only logs, I want to get into that container machine. For that, docker exec-it container ID, take this container ID /bin/bash. Okay, guys. Now, see, my directory is changed. Earlier, I'm in the EC2 user, the Python Flask Docker application. The moment when I execute this command, I entered into root directory /app. See the present working directory. I'm in the /app. Let us do ls-l. So now see, whatever the data that is available in my project, that data is copied to /app directory. What is this /app directory? This /app directory is a directory in the container machine. These are the files which are available in the container machine. User directory is available, app directory is created. Now cd space app directory. Now ls-l app directory. So my Python application Docker file, my Python application app.py file, my Python application requirements.txt file, everything is packaged. Everything is packaged and kept into app directory. So where is this app directory? This app directory is available in the Docker container machine. Now I am available inside the Docker container. I want to come out from the container. To come out from the container, I will use exit. When I use exit, I came back to my EC2 machine. If I want to go inside the container, same command. Docker exec-it container ID bin bash. Now from my machine, I'm entering into Docker container. In the Docker container, app directory is available. ls-l. Now my files are copied to this Docker container. Are you guys clear with my point? Right. So what is the purpose of Docker logs command? It is used to print logs of our application. And what is the purpose of Docker exec command? To get into the Docker container machine. To come out from container, use exit command. Okay. Now, currently, I'm in the container machine. Exit. So what happened? Python Flask Docker app. This is my present working directory. I want to go inside the container. Docker exec. I'm in the container. See the content. Our project files are copied to the container. Yes, our project files are copied to the container. I want to come out from the container. For that, I'm using exit. When I do the exit, I came back to my host machine. So we are operating the Docker from the host machine. In the host machine, we are creating a container. If you want to go into the container, then there is an option. Docker exec command is available. Sir, in which scenario we will go into the Docker container to see the problems? If any, file is not copied. Is there any problem? My application is not executing as expected. Some files are not copied properly. Whether the files are copied properly or not, to check that, we will go to the Docker container and we will troubleshoot the problem. So these two commands will help you to troubleshoot. Docker logs command, Docker exec command. Got my point? Yes. Now similarly, let me run one Spring Boot application, guys. cd space dot dot clear ls-l. Here I'm having Spring Boot Docker application. Okay. Go inside that Spring Boot Docker application. ls-l. Docker file is available. I want to build the Docker image. I want to run the image. And I want to see the container. I want to see the logs of the container. I want to get into the container. Now, in this Spring Boot application also, we have a Docker file. Now, what is this Docker file? I'm using base image as OpenJDK. I'm copying the jar file from the target directory to user app directory. What is this user app directory? Container path. In this path, our jar file will be copied. Can we check it in the container really? Our jar is copied to container or not? Yes. Let me build the Docker image and run it. Docker build -t image name. Spring Boot REST API. Okay, space dot. So with this, my Docker image is creating for the Spring Boot application. So by using this image, I want to run the container and I want to troubleshoot the container. Yeah, image got created for the Docker Spring Boot application. Let us go for Docker images. Yeah, SB REST API image is created 7 seconds ago. That is used JDK as a base image. So Java is required to run the Spring Boot application. So here Spring Boot REST API image is created by using this Java. With this image, I want to create a container. Docker run -d -p. Now I can map it to 8080. Spring Boot application will use embedded Tomcat. That embedded Tomcat will run on the port number 8080. That 8080 port I am mapping to the host port 8080. Yesterday I mapped it to 9090. Today I am mapping to 8080 only. Host port you can use anything. Right. Yesterday there was another container using 8080. So that's why I mapped it to 9090. Today Python is using 5000 port. So 8080 is free now. I'm mapping to 8080. Docker run -d detached mode -p 8080 and image name SB REST API. I have given this image. Okay. Now my application is accessible. Let us verify our application is accessible or not. With 5000, we are able to access Python application. Python application running in one container. Now let us go for 8080. Let us go for 8080. When I go for 8080, my Spring Boot application is accessible. So one container is used to run. In one container, I'm running Spring Boot application. In another container, I'm running Python application. Two containers are created in the machine. So in my host machine, two Docker containers are running. So one Docker container is using Python application. To run the Python application, I created one Docker container. To run the Spring Boot application, I'm using one Docker container. Now, if you see here, this is my host machine. So in the host machine, I am having operating system. I can say this is a host OS. So what is my host OS? The host OS is Linux. It can be Linux or it can be Windows also, no problem. In this host machine, I installed Docker. That is called Docker engine. I installed Docker software in this machine to perform the Dockerization operations. I installed Docker engine. Okay, this is the host OS and this is my Docker engine. By using this Docker engine, I am running two applications. I am running two applications. So when I run the two applications, it created two containers. One is container 1, another one is container 2. In this container 1, I am running Python application. Okay, in this container 2, I am running Spring Boot application. In this container 2, I am running Spring Boot application. Python application running on the container with a port number 5000. That is the default port for the Python. Spring Boot application is running on the port number 8080. That is the default port number of the Tomcat. Now, in my machine, Docker engine is available. Using the Docker engine, I'm running Python application and boot application. So Python application is running in one container. Spring Boot application is running in another container. So these are two different containers. Now these two containers I want to access by using host machine. For my host machine, public IP is available. Using this public IP, I want to access these two applications. By using public IP, I want to access these two applications. So for that, what we have done is we mapped this Python container port number to host port number. This is Spring Boot container port number to host port number. How I have done that mapping? Here I have given -p 8080:8080. Here I have given -p 5000:5000. 5000:5000. So here, Python application port is 5000. Spring Boot application port is 8000. Python container port I map it to host port 5000 only. Spring Boot application container port is 8080. I map it to container port 8080. Now, by using this public IP, if you send the request with the 5000 URL, then Python application will be accessed. With the same IP, if you use 8080 port, then Spring Boot application will be accessed. This is the URL of our Python application. This is the URL of our Spring Boot application. In one machine, two Docker containers are running. Am I installing multiple operating systems, multiple softwares in the machine to run the applications? I'm just running the Docker image, then Docker will take care of the required softwares. Am I installing Python, Java, Tomcat to run my applications, or everything is taken care by Docker here? Did I install Python in my machine? Did I install Java in my machine? No, but still I'm able to run the Python application and I'm able to run the Spring Boot application on the Docker. So Python application is running in one Docker container, Spring Boot application running in the another Docker container. So before the Docker, what people used to do? People used to go for virtualization. They used to take one machine. In that machine, they will install multiple guest operating systems. In those guest operating systems, they will install the required softwares. Then they will run the application. But today, we are running the Docker images so that Docker containers will be created. Container is like a virtual box. Inside that container, Docker will keep all the softwares which are required based on the Docker file. Are you clear? What is happening in our machine now? Are you clear? What is happening in our Docker machine now? In our Docker machine, two containers are running. Like this. Can I run multiple containers in one machine? Can I run multiple containers in one machine? I gave the two URLs in the chat box. Are you able to access those two URLs? If you are able to access the two applications with from the same IP address, that means two containers are running on the same machine which are mapped to different port numbers. Python application mapped to 5000 port. So that's why when I send a request to the IP address with the 5000, I'm getting welcome to Python Flask application. And when I send the request to this 8080, then I'm getting welcome to Ashok IT. This is a Spring Boot application and this is a Python application. So today I have given URL for you to access my application. So tomorrow what I will do is this URL I will map to one domain. This URL I will map to one domain, www.ashokit.in. So we don't give IP address to the people. We will give the domain name for the people. I will purchase a domain, www.ashokit.in. That domain I will map to my application URL. So end user will send a request to the URL, that is a domain name. Then the domain will forward the request to my application URL. That is how the domain mapping will happen in the real time. So this is called DNS mapping. So the DNS mapping we are going to see in the AWS classes. In the AWS, there is a concept called Route 53. By using Route 53, we can map our application URL to the domain. So here we are accessing the application by using URL. But in the real world, anybody access the application by using this IP address, or they will use URL to access the application? customers will use URL to access the application. So application URL should be mapped to the domain name, right? So this is the URL. So this is the domain name. Application domain name should be mapped to this IP address. So when customer access this website URL, then it should be forward the request to this IP address. So that is called domain mapping. DNS mapping will happen. That we will discuss in the coming classes. Okay, guys. Now, so here I want to check the logs of the Spring Boot Docker container, Spring Boot application Docker containers. See Docker PS. When I executed Docker PS, it is displaying all the containers which are running here. How many containers are running? One is Spring Boot application container. Another one is Python application container. I want to check the logs of the Spring Boot application container. I want to check the logs of the Spring Boot application container. Can you tell me which command I need to use to check the container logs? Can you tell me which command I need to use to check the container logs? Docker logs container ID. So which command to display the running containers? Docker PS. Docker PS command I am using to display the Docker containers here. Now let me go for Docker logs container ID. This is my Spring Boot application container ID. Docker logs container ID. Now these many requests are coming to my application. Whenever a request comes to my application, it is printing some log messages on the console. See these many requests. So my Spring Boot application started. So this is the Spring Boot application banner. It is saying that starting the Spring Boot application as a root user from this user app directory, our jar file is copied to this location in the container. So it is running that jar file. When it run the jar file, it started the Tomcat server. Then it's created the object for the classes available in the project. Tomcat server started on the port number 8080 and people started sending the request for my application. Whenever they send a request for my application, it is printing the message. Welcome message, execution start, execution end, execution start, execution end. So these many requests are sent to my application. So my application is working. I'm able to see the logs of my application. Not only logs, I want to get into the container. I want to see really the jar file is copied from my machine to container machine or not. Okay, guys. Now see, how can we go into that container machine? Docker PS. Now, Docker exec -it. -it means interactive mode. Docker exec execute this container. Let's get into the container. Docker exec -it container ID. Take the container ID /bin/bash. Now I entered into Docker container. Which directory it is opening by default? User app directory. Now cd space double dot, then user directory. cd space double dot, now ls-l. So this is another Linux machine, guys. So Docker container means it is using another Linux machine. Okay. In one Linux machine, we are running the container. That means the container creating its own virtual machine to run our application. So earlier in the virtualization, manually we need to install the multiple guest operating systems. But now Docker is going to take care of another virtual machine to run our application. So this is the directory structure of the Linux machine. So now in this Linux machine, where our project jar file is available. So if you see the Docker file of our application, if you see the Docker file of our Spring Boot application, we copied the jar from the target directory to user app directory. So where is this user app directory? This user app directory will be available in the Docker container. Now I came into the Docker container by using this Docker exec command. By using this Docker exec command, I came into the Docker container. Now let us check really our jar is copied or not. User directory is available. cd space user. Now ls-l. In the user, we have app directory. cd space app directory. Now in the app directory, let us check it. Yes, our jar is copied. When this jar is copied, yesterday that jar is copied. Are you guys getting my point? So whatever the copy command I'm executing, are we able to see that the jar is copied to container machine from the host machine? From the host machine, the jar is copied to the, from the host machine, the jar is copied to the container machine. And we are executing that jar file, then it started our application. Are you guys clear with my point? Understood? Yeah. So what is the purpose of Docker logs? It is used to print container logs. So for troubleshooting, we will check the logs. If any problem occurred in the application, we will find the problem by using log messages. And how to see the container files? By using Docker exec. Now I'm in the container or I'm in the host machine. Guys, see this part. I'm in the container or I'm in the host machine now. I'm in the container. How to come out from the container? How to come out from the container? Exit. By using a command, exit. When I do the exit, I came back to my host machine. In the host machine, my Spring Boot application is available. Clear? Good. Perfect. Next one. Guys, if you see the application architecture, front end will be available, back end will be available. So as of now, we understood how to Dockerize Java application, how to Dockerize Python application. Okay, Java, Python, this is Spring Boot, all are used to develop back-end applications only. Now, what about front-end application? So in the real time, companies are using front-end development with Angular or React or Vue.js. So now I want to Dockerize one React.js application. I want to Dockerize one React.js application. So in the real time, what will happen is front end will be developed as one project. For that, one Docker image will be created. So that will run in the Docker container. Backend will be developed as separate project. For that, one Docker image will be created and it will execute in the Docker container. So front end container will be available and the backend container also will be available. Able to follow me? So now how to Dockerize one React.js application? Okay, Dockerize React.js application. So what is React.js? React.js with Docker. React.js with Docker, or you can use Angular with Docker. Anything is fine. React.js with Docker. So what is React.js? React.js is a JavaScript library. React.js is a JavaScript library. Okay, React.js is a JavaScript library. React.js is used to develop front end of the application. Is used to develop front end of the application. We can say it is user interface. Backend will be developed by using Java or .NET or Python or PHP. So here front end will be developed as a separate project. Now in the real time, what will happen now? So we are going to create one Docker container, front end application container, and here backend application container, and here database container. So 3 containers will be available. Now here we already have seen how to Dockerize the backend application, Java or Python or whatever it is. So this is backend app container. In one container, our backend application will execute. In another container, front-end application will execute. Front-end app container, backend application container, front-end application container. Here, DB container, DB container. Now, from the front end, the request will go to the backend container. From the backend container, the request will go to database container. So this is called our application. End user will access our application through front-end container. End user will send the request to the front-end application. Front-end application will send the request to the back-end application. Back-end application will send the request to the database. So like this, the project communication will happen. So in this process, in this application architecture, as of now, what we understood is how to Dockerize the back-end applications. Spring Boot or Java or Python, they are used to develop backend of your project. Okay. Are you guys getting my point? Are you guys getting my point? What is front end? What is back end? What is database? So in the first class itself, I explained application architecture. So application will contain front end, back end, and database. Right. Front end, nothing but user interface. To develop the front end, in the companies, people are using either Angular or React or Vue.js. To develop the backend of the application, people are going for Java, .NET, Python, Node.js, PHP, anyone. For database, people will use Oracle or MySQL or MongoDB, PostgreSQL or SQL Server. Are you clear, guys? Now, so how to Dockerize our React.js applications? So what is React.js? React.js is a JavaScript library. React.js is used to develop front end of the application, that is user interface. Right. Now, here, when we want to Dockerize our React application, when we want to Dockerize our React.js application, how to create a Docker file for the React.js? So React.js will be using NPM, Node Package Manager, to install the required softwares to run the React application. So React applications, React.js will use Node Package Manager to install required softwares. So if you want to create the React application, or if you want to run the React application, we will be using Node Package Manager. Are you guys getting my point? Fine. So here, how to write the Docker file for the React.js application? React.js Docker file. React.js application Docker file. So here, to run the React.js Docker file, to create the React.js application Docker file from base image, we are going to use Node.js we are going to use, right? So by using that Node.js, we are going to get the Node Package Manager. By using the Node Package Manager, we will Dockerize the React applications. Okay, from node:\latest. So I'm giving from node:\latest. What is the meaning of from? What is the meaning of from? Base image. So in order to Dockerize this application, I need the node from node:\latest. Okay, guys. Then here I want to copy the files. So to copy the files, what I will do? Copy everything. I want to copy. There will be a file called package.json file will be available. Copy package.json file to our directory. You can go for app directory, right? So package.json file will be available in the React application. That file will be copied to /app directory. So once it is copied to the app directory, we will go for workdir/app. We'll go for workdir/app. Then I want to execute run npm install. I got the node as a base image. By using that node, I want to do npm install. So run command. When this run command will execute? This run command will execute when the container is creating. When the container is creating. So once it is done, I want to copy the complete project data also by using copy dot, right? So whatever the files are available, I want to copy the file. Once we have done the copy, you can go for either CMD or entry point in order to execute the React application. How to execute the React application? To execute the React application, we will go for npm start. So like this, you can execute the React.js application. This is the Docker file for the React.js. So we need to create the React.js application and we need to write the Docker file like this for the React.js application, and we need to create the image and we need to run the image. Are you getting my point? React.js application Docker file will be available like this from node:/latest. Copy package.json to the app directory. Then go for work.dir with the /app. I will go there. Then I will install, run npm install. Then copy. Then do the entry point. What is the entry point? npm start. What is the meaning of npm start? What is the meaning of npm start? To start the React application. It is used to start the React application. Now, for the React.js, I have given one Git repository, guys. Let me go to my GitHub. So let me search to the repositories. Let me search the repositories of the React. React app will be available. Yeah, React app is available. In this React app, I kept the Docker file also. Now, I will give this GitHub repository for the React. Okay. So React app get repo. React app git repo. Okay. So this one we can use as React application repository. And in that repository, I kept the Docker file also. You just need to clone the repository, build the Docker image, and run the Docker image. Can you guys do this as an assignment? Can you guys do this as an assignment? Expose keyword. If you want, you can write the expose keyword. Expose is optional, right? Expose is optional. Okay, if you want to write expose, you can do it. Expose. React will run on the 3000. Like this, port number. Once you create the container, you can see on which port number it is running. Once you create the container, without doing the port mapping, if you execute docker ps command, it will show you which port number they are running. And that port number you can map to that other port number, whatever you are using in your project. Got it? And simple, nowadays, people are using ChatGPT. Have you gone through the ChatGPT? Guys, have you gone through the ChatGPT? You don't need to struggle. You don't need to remember all these things. You can go to ChatGPT also. ChatGPT will give you all these Docker files. I have uploaded one video on the ChatGPT. For example, I want to get the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. You can ask the ChatGPT. So Spring Boot app Docker file, Spring Boot application Docker file. So when you ask ChatGPT, see, it is writing the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. That's it. Right from OpenJDK 11, they are using work directory. They are setting as app, copying the jar file from our target directory to app directory, copying the properties file also if required. Then it is saying that expose that Spring Boot application will run on the port number 8080. We used entry point. They are using CMD. It is running the jar file. This is the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. Suppose I want to generate the Docker file for Python Flask application. Docker file for Python Flask application. Go here. From Python, they are using work.dir. They are using here. Copy that. run pip install requirements.txt. Flask cannot be installed by using this Docker. So that's why we are specifying that in the requirements.txt. Requirements.txt file contains the Flask work directory. Copy that, install the pip install requirements.txt. Python applications will run on the port number 5000. So then app.py is the Python application file and they want to run that Python Flask application. I used entry point, they are using CMD. They're giving the explanation also. Now, Docker file for the React.js application. Docker file for React.js app. Simple. So they are using node work directory. They are setting that. Copying the package.json, yarn install, CMD, run the yarn build, expose 3000. React application will use live server. That live server will run on the port number 3000. Then they are using yarn start. I used npm start. Okay. Now, similarly, I want to Dockerize my Angular application. So how to write the Docker file for the Angular application? Angular application will use live server with the 4200 port number. So Docker file for Angular application. Docker file for Angular application. See the beauty of the ChatGPT. Copying the package.json file, npm install, run npm build prod, expose on 80, CMD, run this. Right. Angular application will run on the 4200. They are mapping to the 80 port number like this. So now, do you need to by heart all these things or you can take the help of this ChatGPT? Samjha? Guys, are you able to understand the power of the ChatGPT? Do you need to by heart everything? No. It is simplifying that life. It is simplifying our life. Yeah. So multiple solutions it will provide. If you ask regenerate, it will give different approaches to write the Docker files. It will give different approaches to Docker file. How to Dockerize React application? You can ask that ChatGPT. It is giving the clearly steps. Create a Docker file in the root directory of your React application. Here is the example. Build the Docker image by using the following command. Docker build -t your image namespace dot. Run the Docker image. Docker run -p port mapping your image name. Once you have done, so option map port 3000 in the container port. Access the React app using this port in your browser. That's it. Step by step, it is giving how to Dockerize React application. See the beauty of it. But you should know how to write the Docker files. You can take the first time you can take the help of the ChatGPT, but you take the pen and paper and practice writing these things, guys. Because in the interview, you cannot use ChatGPT. In the interview, they will ask you to share your screen and write the Docker files. In the interview, they will ask you to share the screen and write the Docker files. So not just copy paste, you need to understand how we are writing the Docker file for Java and for Spring Boot application, for Python application, for Angular application, for React application. Are you getting my point? I want you to Dockerize the React application. I have given the Git repository for the React application. I have given the Git repository for the React application. Okay, good. Sir, can we take another class for 1 hour by taking 10 minutes break or tomorrow? So today I don't have my other classes. I can take another 1 hour class also. I will give some break tomorrow. People are saying tomorrow. Okay, guys, fine, good. So with this, I'm stopping for today. And please practice this Python application and React applications before coming to tomorrow class. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about Docker network and Docker compose, Docker volumes, and all that stuff. Okay? Thank you, guys. With this, I'm stopping for now. We'll meet in the tomorrow session.